Tears stung my eyes as I stood by Willow Lake, the place where Grandpa Joe taught me to fish and dream. His lake cabin, weathered and warm, held every memory of his laughter. That morning, bulldozers roared up, ready to crush it all. I gripped his old watch in my pocket, my heart breaking. I swore I'd fight to save his legacy, no matter what it cost. My hand shook as I clutched his old photo, knowing I had to fight for what he left me. I never imagined that fight would uncover a secret that could bring down the entire HOA. I was sipping coffee on that porch, lost in thoughts of Grandpa Joe, when the ground trembled. Heavy machinery rolled up the dirt path, and a woman in a sharp blazer stepped out of a black SUV. Her name was Diane, the HOA president, and her cold smile sent a chill down my spine. She waved a paper and said, "Mr. Carter, this cabin's an eyesore. It violates our rules. It's coming down today." I stood frozen, my heart pounding. This cabin wasn't just wood and nails. It was my grandpa's dream, built with his own hands in the 1950s. I forced a grin and replied, "That's funny, Diane. This cabin was here before your HOA even existed." She laughed, sharp and dismissive. "Doesn't matter. We own this lakefront now. Check the new boundaries." I glanced at the paper she shoved at me. It was a map, redrawn to include my cabin in their territory. My stomach twisted. Something wasn't right. I wasn't one to back down. My name's James Carter, a 32-year-old mechanic who'd spent years fixing cars and problems. That cabin was my haven, inherited from Grandpa Joe, who'd taught me to stand my ground. It sat on a quiet corner of Willow Lake, its cedar walls weathered but strong, with a stone fireplace where we'd told stories. The HOA, called Lakeside Heights, had popped up in the 2000s, turning the lake into a fancy, gated community. I'd ignored their letters about aesthetic violations for months, thinking my land was untouchable. But now Diane's crew was unloading equipment, and she was barking orders like she owned the place. "You've got 1 hour to clear out, or we'll do it for you," she snapped. I clenched my fists, tempted to argue, but I knew I needed a plan, not a fight. If you love these HOA stories and want more, hit that subscribe button and join our channel for the craziest battles against power-hungry HOAs. Trust me, this story's about to get wild. I stepped inside the cabin, my mind racing. Diane's map didn't add up. Grandpa Joe had always said our land was separate, bought long before developers showed up. I grabbed my phone and called my cousin Emily, a paralegal who'd helped with Grandpa's will. The HOA's trying to bulldoze the cabin. They say it's theirs. Can you dig into the property records?" Her voice was steady. "Send me everything you've got, James. I'll check the county files." I snapped a photo of Diane's map and sent it, my hand still shaking. Outside, the bulldozers idled, waiting for Diane's signal. I needed time, and I needed answers. I stepped back onto the porch, stalling. "Diane, let's talk this out. Why is this cabin such a problem?" She crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "It's not personal, Mr. Carter. Lakeside Heights is expanding. We're building a new resort, and your shack's in the way." Her words hit like a punch. "A resort? That's why they wanted my land." I kept my voice calm. "And you think you can just take it?" She smirked. "We have the town council's approval. You're out of moves." Her confidence made my blood boil, but I noticed something. A flicker of unease in her eyes when I mentioned the cabin's history. She was hiding something, and I was going to find out what. I remembered Grandpa Joe's old trunk in the attic, stuffed with papers he'd kept from the land purchase. I climbed the creaky ladder, dust tickling my nose, and pulled it open. Inside were yellow documents, maps, and a deed with his signature. My heart skipped as I scanned it. The deed listed not just the cabin's plot, but extra land along the lake. Land where the HOA's shiny new clubhouse stood. I whispered, "No way." If this was true, I held the key to their whole operation. But I needed proof, and fast. Diane's crew was getting restless outside, and I could hear her shouting, "Time's up, Carter." I stuffed the deed in my pocket and climbed down, my mind buzzing with possibilities. Back outside, I faced Diane, holding the deed behind my back. "You sure you've got the right to do this?" I asked, my voice steady. She rolled her eyes. "Don't waste my time. That paper's worthless." But her voice cracked. just enough to tell me she wasn't as sure as she acted. I leaned in, lowering my voice. What if I told you I own the land under your clubhouse? Her face froze, her eyes widening for a split second before she recovered. That's ridiculous, she snapped, but she took a step back. I'd hit a nerve. The bulldozers revved, but I stood my ground, knowing this was just the start. I had to dig deeper, and I had to move fast before Diane and her HOA could cover their tracks. Diane's eyes darted to the deed in my hand, and for a moment I thought she'd snatch it. She turned to her crew, barking, "Hold off for now." The bulldozers went quiet, but the air felt heavy, like a storm was brewing. I slipped the deed into my pocket, my heart racing. I'd shaken her, but I knew she wasn't done. "This isn't over, Carter," she hissed, storming back to her SUV. As her tires kicked up dust, I felt a mix of relief and dread. I had a weapon now, but Diane and her HOA weren't the type to back down. I needed to know what they were hiding and why my grandpa's land was so important to them. I headed back inside the cabin, locking the door. My phone buzzed. Emily, my cousin. "James, I checked the county records. That map Diane gave you? It's fake. The town council redrew the boundaries last year, but your land's not part of Lakeside Heights. Grandpa's deed is solid." My jaw dropped. "Fake? How'd they pull that off?" Emily's voice tightened. "Someone's got pull in the council. I'm digging deeper, but be careful. These people play dirty." I thanked her and hung up, my mind spinning. A fake map meant fraud, and fraud meant Diane was desperate. But why? What was worth risking everything for? I sat at Grandpa Joe's old oak table, spreading out the deed and his maps. The extra land it mentioned wasn't just any plot. It stretched right under the HOA's clubhouse, a $1 million building with marble floors, and a pool that screamed money. If I owned that land, I could stop their whole expansion. But I needed more than a dusty paper to fight Diane. I remembered my buddy, Matt, a deputy sheriff, who'd grown up fishing with me at the lake. I shot him a text. "Need a favor. Can you check if Lakeside Heights pulled any shady permits?" He replied fast, "On it. Meet me at Rusty's Diner tonight." I felt a spark of hope. Matt was no fan of the HOA's high and mighty attitude. While waiting, I rummaged through Grandpa's trunk again, hoping for more clues. Tucked in a corner was a faded letter from 1985, addressed to him from a developer. It offered big money for the lakefront land, but warned he'd regret holding out. Grandpa had scribbled on it, "Not for sale. They'll try again." My stomach churned. Had Diane's HOA been after this land for decades? The letter mentioned a name, Robert Klein, a councilman back then. I Googled him and froze. Robert was Diane's father. This wasn't just business, it was personal. Diane was finishing what her dad started, and my cabin was the last obstacle. That evening, I met Matt at Rusty's, the greasy spoon where locals swapped gossip. He slid into the booth, his deputy badge glinting. "James, you're stirring up a hornet's nest," he said, keeping his voice low. "The HOA's permits for that clubhouse? Pushed through in a week, no public hearing. Guess who signed off? Councilman Greg Turner, Diane's brother-in-law." I leaned forward, my coffee forgotten. "Her family's got the town in their pocket?" Matt nodded. "There's more. I heard whispers they're planning a big resort deal. Your land's the centerpiece." I clenched my mug. Diane wasn't just bullying me. She was building an empire on my grandpa's legacy. As we talked, my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. I answered, cautious. A man's voice, rough and hurried, said, "Carter, you've got something they want. Meet me at the old pier at midnight. Come alone." Before I could ask who he was, the line went dead. Matt raised an eyebrow. "Trouble." I shrugged, playing it cool, but my gut screamed danger. "Just a lead," I said. I didn't tell him about the meeting. Matt had my back, but this felt like something I had to face alone. I left the diner, the night air cold against my skin, wondering if I was walking into a trap. Back at the cabin, I grabbed a flashlight and Grandpa's old pocket knife, just in case. The pier was a mile away, a rickety thing where we'd fished as kids. As I drove, I kept glancing in my rearview mirror, half expecting Diane's SUV to tail me. The lake was dark, the moon barely a sliver. At the pier, I waited, my breath fogging in the chilly air. Footsteps crunched behind me, and I spun around, gripping the knife. A man stepped into the light, gray hair, worn jacket, eyes darting. "I'm Eddie," he said. "Used to work for the HOA. They fired me when I asked too many questions." I relaxed, but only a little. "What do you know?" I asked. He glanced around, nervous. "Your grandpa's land? It's not just about the resort. There's a secret they're burying, and it's worth millions." Before he could say more, headlights flashed in the distance. Eddie bolted, whispering, "Watch your back, Carter." I stood alone, my heart pounding, knowing I'd just scratched the surface of something much bigger than a cabin. The headlights vanished, and Eddie was gone, swallowed by the darkness around Willow Lake. My heart hammered as I stood on the pier, his words echoing, "A secret worth millions." I gripped Grandpa Joe's pocket knife, scanning the shadows. Was Eddie telling the truth, or was this a setup? I couldn't shake the feeling that Diane's HOA was watching my every move. I hurried back to my truck, the lake's quiet ripples hiding the chaos in my head. Whatever this secret was, it was tied to my grandpa's land, and I had to uncover it before Diane made her next move. Back at the cabin, I locked the door and spread Grandpa's papers across the table. The deed was clear. I owned the land under the HOA's clubhouse. But Eddie's warning hinted at something bigger. I found a map in the trunk, older than the others, showing a strange mark near the clubhouse site, a circle labeled restricted. My gut twisted. Restricted? From what? I called Emily again, my voice low. I found a weird map. Something about restricted land under the clubhouse. Can you check if it's in the county files?" She paused, then said, "That sounds like a sealed record. I'll need to call in a favor at the clerk's office. Give me a day." I hung up uneasy. Time was running out, and Diane wasn't sitting still. The next morning, I woke to a loud knock. It was Sarah, my neighbor, a retired teacher who'd lived by the lake for decades. Her face was pale. "James, someone was snooping around your cabin last night. I saw flashlights near the shed." My stomach dropped. "Did you see who?" She shook her head. "Too dark, but they weren't friendly. Be careful." I thanked her and checked the shed. Nothing was missing, but muddy footprints circled the lock. Someone was looking for something. Maybe the deed. I hid it in Grandpa's old tackle box, buried under fishing lures. If Diane's people were this bold, I needed more than papers to fight back. I drove to the library, figuring Old Town records might hold clues about the restricted land. The librarian, Mrs. Clark, remembered Grandpa Joe and let me into the archives. I dug through dusty files, my eyes burning from hours of reading. Then I found a 1960s report about a geological survey on the lake. It mentioned a rare mineral deposit under what was now the clubhouse, worth a fortune if mined. My hands shook as I read. Diane's resort wasn't the real plan. She wanted that deposit. Grandpa must have known, and that's why he never sold. I snapped photos of the report, my mind racing. This was the secret Eddie meant, and Diane would do anything to keep it buried. As I left the library, my phone rang. Matt, the deputy. "James, I got something. The HOA's been paying off a surveyor to fake reports about your land. They're saying it's unstable to justify demolition." I gripped the wheel. "Unstable? That's a lie to steal it." Matt's voice was grim. "There's more. I heard Diane's hiring muscle to handle you. Watch your back." I thanked him, my throat tight. Diane was escalating, and I was running out of time. I needed to confront her, but not without a plan. I remembered Sarah mentioning an HOA meeting that night. If I could sneak in, I might hear Diane's next move. I parked a block from the clubhouse, my heart pounding as I slipped through the trees. The building glowed, packed with HOA members sipping wine. I crouched behind a dumpster, close enough to hear voices through an open window. Diane was speaking, her tone sharp. "Carter's a problem, but we're close. The council's ready to eminent domain his land for the resort." A man laughed, Greg, her brother-in-law. "And the mineral deposit? We'll be rich once his cabin's gone." My blood ran cold. They knew about the deposit, and they were using the town to steal my land legally. I pulled out my phone to record, but a twig snapped behind me. I froze. A hand grabbed my shoulder, and a low voice growled, "What are you doing here, Carter?" I turned, facing a man in a black cap, his eyes hard. He worked for Diane, and I was caught. Before I could answer, headlights swept the lot. The man cursed and shoved me down, ducking out of sight. It was Matt's patrol car, cruising by on routine. I stayed low, my pulse racing, and scrambled back to my truck when the coast was clear. I'd gotten lucky, but Diane's thug knew I was onto them. As I drove home, my phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or the cabin burns." I stared at the words, my hands shaking. Diane wasn't just playing dirty. She was ready to destroy everything Grandpa Joe built. But I wasn't backing down. I had the deed, the report, and a recording. The fight was on, and I was about to turn her game upside down. The threatening text burned into my mind as I drove back to the cabin, my knuckles white on the wheel. "Stop digging, or the cabin burns." Diane's people were closing in, and I was one wrong move from losing everything. I parked and checked the windows, half expecting to see flames. The cabin stood quiet, but the air felt wrong, like someone had been there. I grabbed the tackle box with the deed and hid it under a loose floorboard. My phone buzzed Emily. "James, the restricted land? It's a sealed mineral claim from the 60s. Grandpa owned it, and it's worth millions. Diane's been bribing officials to bury it." I whispered, "That's why she wants my land." Emily's voice shook. "She's got a council vote tomorrow to seize it. You need to act now." I paced the cabin, my mind racing. The mineral deposit, the fake map, the hired thug, it all pointed to Diane's greed. But I had the deed and the recording from a clubhouse. I called Matt, my deputy friend, and played the clip of Diane and Greg plotting. "This is fraud, James," he said. "I can get it to the sheriff, but you need hard proof of the bribes." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I'm working on it." I remembered Eddie, the ex-HOA worker. He knew something, and I had to find him. I texted the number he'd called from. "Eddie, I need your help. Name the civilian. Where are you from? Where are you from? Meet me at the pier tonight." No reply, but I hoped he'd show. Morning came, and I headed to the courthouse, clutching Grandpa's deed and the geological report. Emily met me there, her face tense. "The council's voting in an hour," she said. "We need to present this to stop them." We found the clerk, a guy named Tim who'd known Grandpa. I showed him the deed and the report, explaining Diane's scheme. His eyes widened. "This is huge, James. But Diane's got the council wrapped. You need a public push." I thought of Rachel, a local reporter I'd gone to school with. I called her, spilling everything. "Can you get this out fast?" She was all in. "Give me 2 hours. This'll blow up online." I felt a spark of hope, but time was tight. As we left the courthouse, I spotted Diane's SUV across the street. She was talking to Greg, her brother-in-law, and a guy in a suit who looked like trouble. They didn't see me, but my gut said they were planning something bad. I pulled Emily behind a pillar. "That's the surveyor Matt mentioned," I whispered. "They're tying loose ends." We slipped away, but my phone buzzed, a photo from an unknown number. It was the cabin's shed, with a gas can beside it. My blood ran cold. They were going to burn it, just like the text warned. I told Emily to stay safe and raced to the cabin, my heart pounding. When I got there, the shed was fine, but a faint gasoline smell lingered. Someone had been there, testing me. I moved the deed to a safe deposit box at the bank, my hand shaking. Back home, I saw Rachel's article online, already viral. It named Diane, Greg, and the surveyor with my evidence. Comments poured in, people furious about the HOA scams. But I knew Diane wouldn't go quietly. I drove to the pier, hoping Eddie would show. The moon was low, the water still. Then I heard a splash. I ran to the edge, flashlight shaking. Eddie was in the water, limp, a gash on his head. I jumped in, dragging him out, but he wasn't breathing. I called 911, my voice cracking. As sirens wailed, I saw a shadow slip into the trees, Diane's thug from a clubhouse. This wasn't just about land anymore. It was murder. I stood by the pier, soaked and shaking, as paramedics covered Eddie's body. Matt arrived, his face grim. "James, what happened?" I told him everything. Eddie's warning, the mineral deposit, the thug I'd seen. Matt's jaw tightened. "That's Rick, Diane's fixer. He's got no record, but he's bad news." I handed him my phone with the threatening text and the Gaskin photo. "They're cleaning house, Matt. I'm next." He nodded. "Stay low. I'm taking this to the DA." As he left, I felt exposed, like eyes were on me. Eddie was dead because he knew too much, and I was holding the same secret. I couldn't go back to the cabin, not yet. I crashed at Emily's place, my mind replaying Eddie's last words, a secret worth millions. I checked Rachel's article again, thousands of shares, with locals demanding a town hall. It was working, but Diane's vote was hours away. Emily handed me a coffee. "James, Tim at the courthouse, called. The council spooked. Your deed's legit, but Diane's claiming you forged it." I slammed the mug down. "Forged? She's the one faking maps." Emily grabbed her laptop. "Then we prove it. I got the original survey from 1960. It matches Grandpa's deed, not her redrawn boundaries." I grinned, despite the fear. "You're a genius, Em." We worked late, pulling every record we could. Emily found a bombshell, a bank statement showing Diane paid the surveyor $50,000 days before the fake report. I sent it to Rachel, who promised to update her article. But my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Sarah, my neighbor. "James, 2 guys were at your cabin. They broke in. I called Matt, but get here quick." My heart sank. I told Emily to stay put and drove to the cabin, keeping my headlights off. The front door was ajar, the lock busted. Inside, papers were scattered, Grandpa's trunk flipped over. They'd been looking for the deed. I checked the floorboard. It was still hidden. Relief hit, but then I heard tires crunch outside. I ducked behind the couch, peering out. Rick and another guy stood by a truck, talking low. "No deed," Rick growled. "Boss says torch it anyway." My pulse spiked. I grabbed my phone, texting Matt. "At cabin. They're here. Hurry." I crept to the back door, but a creak gave me away. Rick spun, pulling a gun. "Carter, come out, or we light it up now." I froze, my mind racing. Then headlights flared, Matt's patrol car. Rick and his buddy bolted, but Matt's partner tackled one. Rick vanished into the woods. Matt burst in, gun drawn. "You okay?" I nodded, gasping. "They wanted the deed. It's safe." He clapped my shoulder. "Good. We got one. He'll talk." Back at the station, Matt said the guy they nabbed was spilling. He'd been paid to scare me, but Rick handled the dirty work, like Eddie. I felt sick. "What about the vote?" Matt checked his phone. Delayed. Rachel's article and the arrest spooked the council. "You bought time." I exhaled, but it wasn't over. Diane was cornered, and cornered snakes strike hard. I went to a motel, too rattled to sleep. At dawn, Rachel called. "James, you won't believe this. I got an anonymous tip. Diane's meeting a developer tonight at the Clubhouse. They're rushing the resort deal before the DA moves." I gripped the phone. "I'm crashing that meeting." She hesitated. "It's risky." I didn't care. Diane had taken too much. I was ending this. I parked near the Clubhouse, my stomach in knots. Rachel's tip about Diane's secret meeting was my last shot to stop her. The lot was dark, only a few cars, Diane's SUV, Greg's sedan, and a sleek black limo. The developer. I slipped through the bushes, my phone set to record. Inside, voices echoed from the conference room. I crouched by a vent, catching Diane's sharp tone. "Carter's done. The vote's back on tomorrow, and his land's ours." A man's voice, smooth and cold, replied. "Good. The deposit's worth billions. We break ground next month." My blood boiled. They were selling my grandpa's legacy for a payday. I edged closer, but a hand clamped my arm. It was Sarah, my neighbor, her eyes wide. "James, what are you doing? They'll see you." I whispered, "I need this, Sarah. They killed Eddie." She nodded, shaky, and let go. "I'm with you." I saw Rick near the gate. My heart sank. Rick was here, and I was exposed. I hit record and held my breath as Diane kept talking. The surveyor's report seals it. Carter's land is unstable. Eminent domains a lock. Greg laughed. And his deed? We'll bury it with a lawsuit. I clenched my fists. They thought they'd won, but I had their words on tape. Then a twig snapped. Rick's shadow loomed near the gate, his gun glinting. Sarah gasped, and I pulled her down. Stay quiet, I hissed. Rick scanned the bushes, inches from us. My phone vibrated, Matt texting, at Clubhouse. Where are you? I couldn't reply, not with Rick so close. He moved past, and I exhaled, but Diane's voice sharpened. Wrap this up. Carter's stirred the town, but we've got the votes. The developer grunted. And the body at the pier? Diane paused, then said, handled. Rick's thorough. My stomach twisted. They were admitting to Eddie's murder, and I had it recorded. But Rick was circling back. Sarah tugged my sleeve. We gotta go. I nodded, but the vent creaked as I shifted. Rick froze, then charged our way. I grabbed Sarah and ran, dodging trees, my phone still recording. Shots rang out, and Sarah screamed. I dove behind a shed, shielding her. You hit. I whispered. She shook her head, trembling. Matt's siren wailed, and Rick cursed, sprinting off. Matt and 2 deputies swarmed the lot, guns drawn. I stood, waving. It's me. I've got proof. Matt ran over as Diane and Greg burst out, shouting about trespassing. The developer slipped into his limo, peeling out. Matt ignored Diane, taking my phone. This better be good, James. At the station, Matt played the recording. Diane's voice, clear as day, admitting to fraud and Eddie's murder. The DA was there, stone-faced. This'll hold in court, she said. We're pulling the vote and freezing the HOA's accounts. I sagged with relief, but Matt frowned. Rick's gone, and Diane's lawyering up. Stay sharp. I nodded, exhausted, but alive. Back at the motel, Emily and Rachel met me. Rachel grinned. Your recording's viral now. The town's demanding Diane's head. Emily hugged me. Grandpa'd be proud. I smiled, but worry gnawed at me. Rick was out there, and Diane wasn't done. I had to finish this for Grandpa Joe and Eddie. The town buzzed with rage as Rachel's updated article spread. Diane's fraud, the mineral deposit, Eddie's murder, it was all out. I stayed at the motel, checking my phone every hour. Matt called with news. The DA had charged Diane and Greg with fraud and conspiracy, and the surveyor was turning state's evidence. But Rick was still a ghost, and that kept me up at night. Emily brought me Grandpa's old journal, found in the cabin's attic. Read this, she said. It's about the land. I flipped through it, my eyes catching a note. The deposit's my leverage. Never sell. They'll cheat. Grandpa knew the HOA's game decades ago. His words lit a fire in me. I met Sarah and other neighbors at a town hall organized after the article. The room was packed, people shouting about the HOA's lies. I stood up, holding the deed. This land's mine, and Diane tried to steal it for a mineral deposit. She broke laws and hurt people. We can stop her. The crowd roared, and Sarah took the mic. I'm running for HOA president. Let's fix this. I smiled. She'd been quiet before, but now she was a leader. Tim, the clerk, confirmed the deed was airtight, and the council scrapped the eminent domain vote. It felt like a win, but I knew Diane had one last card. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. A distorted voice said, Carter, you're dead. The cabin burns tonight. I recognized Rick's growl. I called Matt, who sent a patrol to the cabin, but I couldn't sit still. I drove there, my heart pounding. The cabin was dark, but a faint glow flickered inside. I ran in, smelling gasoline. A Molotov cocktail sat on the table unlit, with a note, last warning. Rick was toying with me. Matt's team arrived, securing the place, but Rick was gone again. Matt shook his head. He's taunting you. We'll get him. I wasn't so sure. I took the note and left, my nerves shot. The next day, Emily found a bombshell in Grandpa's journal, a letter to a lawyer, detailing the mineral deposit and his refusal to sell. It named Robert Klein, Diane's dad, as the one who'd threatened him. I took it to the DA, who added it to the case. Rachel ran a new story, linking Diane's family to decades of scams. The town turned on her, her allies quit, and Greg cut a plea deal, ratting on her bribes. But Diane was out on bail, and that scared me. I met Matt at the diner, where he showed me Rick's rap sheet: assault, arson, no convictions. He's her attack dog, Matt said. And he's close. I went to the bank, checking the deed in the safe deposit box. A clerk whispered, "Someone asked about your box yesterday." My skin crawled. Rick was hunting it. I moved the deed to a new box under Emily's name, just in case. That night, Sarah called, excited. "The HOA's voting me in. We're rewriting the rules. No more power grabs." I congratulated her, but my mind was on Rick. I slept with Grandpa's knife under my pillow, jumping at every noise. Diane was down, but Rick was her wild card, and I had to face him before she played it. The trial came fast. I sat in court, gripping Grandpa's watch, as the DA laid out Diane's crimes: fraud, bribery, conspiracy to murder. My recording, the bank statements, and Greg's testimony buried her. The surveyor and the thug Matt caught confirmed Rick killed Eddie on her orders. Diane's face stayed blank, but her eyes burned when they met mine. The jury took an hour. Guilty on all counts. Greg got a lighter sentence for snitching, but Diane faced years. The crowd outside cheered, and Rachel hugged me. "You did it, James." I nodded, but Rick was still out there, and that gnawed at me. Sarah's new HOA took over, passing fair rules and renaming the Clubhouse after Grandpa Joe. I sold the mineral deposit rights to a clean energy company, using the money to fund a scholarship for local kids, honoring Grandpa's dream. The cabin was safe, and I fixed it up, adding a new swing like his old one. Emily and Sarah helped, and the town rallied around us. But every creak at night made me grab the knife, expecting Rick. Matt kept searching, but Rick was a shadow. I couldn't relax, not yet. One evening, I sat on the porch, the lake calm. Matt called. We found Rick. He was hiding in a motel. Tried to run, got sloppy. He's in custody. I exhaled, the weight lifting. He talking. Matt chuckled. Singing. Says Diane ordered everything. Eddie, the break-ins, the arson attempts. I thanked him, my eyes on the water. Rick's arrest sealed it. Diane's empire was dust. I hung up, feeling Grandpa's presence in the breeze. The town threw a party at the cabin, celebrating the new HOA and the scholarship. Sarah gave a speech, crediting me, and I raised a glass to Grandpa Joe. Rachel's final article called me a hero, but I just wanted peace. As folks laughed and kids played, Emily handed me Grandpa's journal, open to his last page. Hold the land. It's your heart. I smiled, tears prickling. I'd kept my promise. Looking back, I learned that greed blinds people like Diane, but truth and grit can stop them. Fighting for what's right isn't easy. It cost Eddie his life and nearly took mine. But standing up with friends like Matt, Emily, and Sarah can change everything. The cabin's still here, the lake still shines, and Grandpa's legacy lives on. That's worth any battle. If you loved this story, subscribe for more HOA takedowns. You never know what's next.